Isn't it amazing how God knows how to equip each human being with the tools, the talents it needs to express itself? You, young lady, are an instrument. And look at and the truth is, each and every one of you in this room is also an instrument of the divine. It may show up in a different form of expression, but that's why we're here, to be that voice of expression in one way or another. Can I get a witness for that? So how are you breathing? I always ask that when I come to see my friends for the first time. How are you breathing this morning? I like to remind us that, and we'll talk about this afternoon in the workshop on mindfulness, but our breathing is something we tend to take for granted. If you think about it, it was the very first thing we did when we came to the planet, is to breathe in. And the very last thing we'll do when we leave the planet is to breathe out. And yet it's the countless breaths between those 2 points that we tend to go unconscious, take the breath for granted, and we go into kind of a comatose state of doing life rather than being life. And so breath is a really important aspect of our being. And that's what I want to talk to you about this morning, is how to drill down into being who we came here to be. The title of my talk this morning is based on my book, The Art of Uncertainty. The subtitle is really where the meat and potatoes is, and that's how to live in the mystery of life and love it. And would you agree with me that life is already a mystery? Life is uncertain, whether we like it or not. Here, think about this. Talk about the mystery itself. We come in with it. We come from the ethers of whoever we come as these soul beings. And we land in these garments of flesh and bone, these bodies, which is, what is our body? Nothing more than a carbon-based, biodegradable, disposable vessel that we ride around with and in until the day it's time to eject and return back into the ethers from which we came. Well, what's not a miracle about that? The fact that we come from the ethers of the unknown, land here, and then take off again. Is that amazing? Is that a miracle or what? But what's equally a miracle, and what's equally a mystery, is what happens between the time we get here and the time we leave is no less a fact that there's uncertainty in our daily lives. We act as if there's not until something shows up and frightens us, and then all of a sudden we begin to pay attention to the uncertainty. Let's face it, there's not one area of your life where uncertainty does not have a role to play. In our relationships, in the economy, what's going on in our world right now, politically, there's so many areas of life that there's a great deal of uncertainty happening. Would you agree with that? So, the question isn't, can we get rid of uncertainty? Because we can't. It's part of the human condition, isn't it? But the question is, how can we learn to live and make peace with uncertainty in a way that we can use it for our further expression of life rather than be stifled by it? And I would propose this to you. What if we could have a shift in perception, which is what the Course in Miracles calls a shift in how you see life. What if we could have a shift in perception and begin to see the uncertainties in our lives as divine mysteries? What if we could see through our lives through the eyes of a mystic? Take a breath. Think about this. What is a mystic? Dr. Ernest Holmes says a mystic is a person who is so deeply aware of the present moment and their relationship with the presence that they can access that presence in any given moment. And that presence goes far beyond the veil of the five senses. And that presence, if we can learn to live in the awareness of that presence, which is what a mystic does, that presence guides the mystic to know, to go, be, and do what he or she is called to go, be, and do. Yeah? Here's the good news and the other news. We're all mystics. Can I get a witness? Here's the other news. Some of us are optimistics, and some of our pessimistics, right? So the question is this. If you're standing on the ledge, as I almost fell off, You're standing on the ledge of uncertainty, which is anything in your daily life can be that ledge of uncertainty. Would you rather have a pessimist standing there holding your hand or an optimist standing there holding your hand? That's a no-brainer, right? The optimist, of course, if you're listening to the pessimist is whispering in your ear, don't lean over, my God, whatever you do, don't go forward. You can lose everything. Just stay where you are, stay stuck, and you'll be fine. And the optimist is saying, come to the edge. Trust. Know there's something within you that knows how to take you to what's next. Lean over. Look up, not down. Yeah? And here's the sad truth. Many of us, most of us, were raised as pessimists. The human condition inundates us with that idea. You think about it, as parents, we condition our children to be pessimists, not intentionally, but we do. I had my grandson with me for Christmas holidays, and my daughter came out and they brought all the equipment, the portable playpen, which I also could refer to as the prison. Because he stands there, and he's a year old, right? And he's rattling, "Let me out of here!" There's this thing within all young children that wants to explore, wants to push out. It innately knows that it's programmed to learn, to grow, to expand. But what do we do as parents? We pull them in, we reel them in, say, color between the lines, do what I say, stay in these confines. We do it because we love them and we fear for them, right? But what we end up doing is creating a box for them to live in. And we teach them to do not go beyond the box because you don't know what's out there. It's dangerous. And so what happens is, as we grow older, living in the box of what we call the known, we go back and forth in the box of the known. Back and forth, 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 back and forth. And ultimately what happens? We dig a rut, right? A rut of sameness. And what is a rut? It's a grave with no ends on it. And a lot of us get stuck in that rut, and we live our entire lives in that rut because we're afraid to step up and out of the rut and to go to what's next. So the rut, a lot of us stand here, the rut's up to here. We're stand on our tippy toes just to see, get a glimpse of what life looks like out there, right? And here's the reality. Most of us that get moved out of the rut, it happens one of two ways. Either we're propelled out of the rut by pain and desperation because it hurts too much to stay where we are, or we're lifted out of the rut by inspiration. We're inspired because there's something within us calling us to move forward with our lives because we know there's something more for us to do and be. A lot of us stay stuck. We're all permeated with this essence. I think I said this last time I was here. This creative urge that's moving through us is saying you got to grow, you got to push out, you got to be more. If you don't honor that divine push, the universal imperative is grow or die. Grow or die. And so we end up coming up to the rut and looking to what is next. There's probably no better place to see how this works than in nature. And this is a true story I'm going to tell you. It's actually a story in the book, The Art of Uncertainty. A number of years ago, when I lived in California, my wife and I had a home that was placed up against the mountains, the hills. It was open space behind us. We had a lot of wildlife, and we had groves of avocados and oranges. One spring, a family of sparrows built a nest up underneath the awning cover, and it was just outside the bay window of the kitchen, so you could see it. So we had the pleasure of watching this family of birds build the nest, give birth to the eggs hatched and whatnot. And the day came, I was so blessed, it was in the morning, the day came that the chicks were called to leave the nest. And I was watching this. This is true. The first chick comes out, and this nest is 10 feet up, ensconced in this little area atop of the patio cover, right? The first chick comes out on the edge of the ledge. He looks, he's flapping these appendages. He has no idea what they are, right? No, he's doing what he's instinctually led to do. And he looks down, and he looks up like this. And I'm looking right in his eyes. And I don't speak birdese, but if I did, He was thinking, holy bananas, that's a long way down. I could lose everything. I could die. But there's something within him that knew fly or die. Huh? So he continued to flap his wings, lean forward like this, and lean over, purposefully, I think, flapping his wings so violently that he fell into the call of gravity. And what did he do? Audience participation time. He flew, right? He flew one lap around the patio, went out and lit on the branch of an avocado tree in the orchard. And he was out there singing away, chirping away, and pretty soon his other siblings come out. The second one comes out, does the same thing, comes to the edge, leans over, falls in the call of gravity, flies, and lands out on the avocado tree. Third one, same thing. The fourth one, which was considerably smaller than the other three birds, comes out to the edge, does this, looks down like this, looks up, and runs back and jumps in the nest. Sounds like some of our kids, doesn't it? And he sat there in his nest for 5-10 minutes, while his little siblings were out in the orchard, chirping away, singing away, flapping wings. I'm sure they were cheering this little guy on, saying, "Come on, Henry, you can do it. Just trust. Come to the edge. Go." And so he jumps out of the nest, literally comes to the edge, doesn't flap, does nothing. He just springs off into the ethers of the air, right? And of course, what does he do? He flies, right? He had transcended that fear that something within him took over. That's something within him that knew what to do. Now, I have to tell you, he flew out and landed on the branch with the other tree, with the other birds. They sat there for about 5 minutes, chirping away, singing away, giving little birdie high fives, whatever they did. They had just accomplished something amazing. Think about that. The first time they set themselves free to get outside of the box. And so they literally took off in formation and flew one large lap around the entire orchard. And then they were off into the ethers to explore their birdness, to be what they were born to be. Now I have to tell you something. The entire time that the birds were there coming to the edge and leaning over, I did not see mom bird or dad bird one time. Mom bird wasn't sitting there, standing there next to the baby, saying, "Hey, honey, flap your wings, lean over, trust, everything will be fine, say your positive affirmations, everything's going to be good." No. There's something within the bird that knew how to be what it was born to be. It transcended the fear to be what it came here to be. Now, I would say this to you. If the divine beloved one would instill a bird with the knowing and the capability to do and be what it came here to be, would it not also instill the same capabilities within us, within the human realm? Shake your head like this. Yes. Yeah, we would. There's a wonderful saying in Zen. It goes, "Move, and the way will open." Move, and the way will open. It does not say, sit there on your behind and wait till the way opens, and if it's comfortable and convenient and it works out for you, you can move. We have a role to play in this thing called evolving of the self, being and doing what we came here to be and do. Can I get a witness for that? It's real easy to get stuck in the rut, yeah? So in the book, I developed 3 questions that you can use as a litmus test to see how well you're doing at coming to the edge of your uncertainties, and these are tools that will help you lean over and step into that fullness of who you came here to be, what is yours to do. The first question is this: what role does fear play in keeping me stuck on the edge from moving what's next into what's next? What role does fear play? Now let's be certain not to demonize fear, because fear ain't a bad thing. Half of us in this room wouldn't be here if we hadn't had some fear instilled in us when we were young. Yeah? And yet, here's the problem. Between childhood and adulthood, we dragged a lot of fears into adulthood, which were okay for a child to move through, but they don't belong in adults' lives. Right? And somewhere between childhood and adulthood, the boundary line between what to fear and what not to fear got blurred. And we become fearful of so many things. You know, a child is only born with two fears. You know what they are, right? Falling and loud noise. Other than that, and I think probably the exception would be survival fears, every fear we have is learned. Take a breath. Every fear we have is acquired. And here's what I propose to you as a student of New Thought and Mind Teachings is this. That which we learn, we can unlearn. It may require going into consciousness and understanding where certain beliefs came from and reprogramming, retooling, getting new beliefs. And that requires being present in the moment to be able to challenge what's going on in your mind, which is where our class this afternoon, the workshop, is about too. So, if you notice that it's real easy when we're stuck on the edge and there's something fearful in front of us, we send our minds out on a reconnaissance patrol into the darkness of the unknown. And they report back, oftentimes, most times, telling us why we shouldn't move forward with our life. Yeah? Have you ever heard the acronym for fear? False evidence appearing real? I got a better one for you. Forget everything and run! Isn't that what we do? When scary stuff pops up in front of us, we spin literally, if not literally, metaphorically, on our heels, and we run. How do we do that? Well, we run to the liquor cabinet, the medicine cabinet, the refrigerator, the shopping mall. There's many barges of denial departing down the river of denial all the time. But the problem is they all have to come back. You have to come back from our trips of denial. And when we do, that which we ran from, the fear we ran from, is sitting right on the edge of the dock like a loyal little puppy dog going, can we pick up where we left off? So there's 3 touchstones to fear that I want to share with you real quick. The first is you can run but you can't hide. Why? Fear's not out there, yeah? Where is it? It's here. And what happens is we respond to something out there and fear arises within us as a response to what we see. This is where mindfulness comes in, to be able to perceive what we are seeing differently through new eyes. Okay. The second touchstone of fear is that, and if you can remember this, when we're facing our fears, it'll help us see where they're coming from, what gave birth to them. All fear is attached to a concern of death of something. Death is another term for loss. Okay? We can ask, when we're experiencing fear, ask, what am I fearful of losing right now? It could be our physical death, the death of loved one. It could also be the death of a financial account, a bank account, the death of a career, the death of when we enter the empty nest syndrome. That's a death of going on there where you're losing something. There's many, many areas where fear, if we're willing to stand toe-to-toe with it, we'll see that it it represents some sort of fear in our life, or some sort of loss or death of something in our life. And here's where the third touchstone comes in. If we can learn to see fear as a teacher, not an enemy, we have much to learn from it. But in order to do that, in the East they say you have to learn how to dance with your demons. You call them in close. You don't run from them. You call it in close. And I do a guided meditation with us where we're literally on a dance floor with your demon, your fears, and you call it in close, and you're embracing your fear, and you hold it close, and you whisper in its ear, oh, master teacher of the moment, tell me what I need to know about you. I'm teachable. I'm open to know, so I can then transcend you and move on, beyond you, and get on with my life. That doesn't mean the fear goes away, but it means you understand it to a point where it does not immobilize you. Are you a witness? You can run, but you can't hide. It's attached to loss of something. Your fear is your teacher if you let it be. The second question you can ask yourself on a daily basis is this. when you come to the edge of uncertainty, the question you have to ask yourself is, what do I need to let go of in order to move forward? Now, I have no doubt that everybody in this room walked into this room with something, mental, emotional, physical, someplace in their lives, carrying that thing that they need to let go of. And a lot of times we're so numb to it, we don't even know what it is because we're so stuck in the realm of doing that we forget to be still with it and let it be our teacher. You know, if you want to know what it is you need to let go of, here's the question you can ask yourself. You're going to love this. We're going to dive into this afternoon in the workshop, by the way. What story are you telling on a constant basis? You know what I mean by story? The things you talk about on a constant basis, over and over and over and over. You probably, maybe not you, but you know somebody in your life who's always talking about something going on in their lives, right? Oftentimes it's attached to the past. Sometimes it's projecting us in the future. But it's a story that we tell over and over and over. We talk about it on an ongoing basis. And guess what? What happens is, after a while, that story grooves a deeper and deeper notch in our subconscious to a point where it begins to take on a life of its own, and pretty soon the story becomes that which runs our life, and we're not even aware of it, the fact that the story is defining who we are. It doesn't have to be that way. There's a great country song by Colin Ray called "That's My Story and I'm Sticking to It." There's another version of that. That's my story. That's my story and it's sticking to me. So the question is, you know, what story is it you're telling that maybe you could wake up and be consciously aware of, so you can begin to tell a new story. And again, in our workshop this afternoon, we're going to talk about that. The fact is that it's not always about telling a negative story. Okay, it doesn't have to be bad. It can be a positive story, but if we continue to tell it over and over and over to a place where it keeps us from moving forward. My brother, God bless him, he's stuck in the 60s. That's all he talks about is the 60s. How great it was, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't know what it's like to live in this decade because he's still stuck in the 60s. That's his story. It goes over and over and over. Okay? It doesn't have to be bad things. As an example, and this is a true experience that's in the book. Back when I first started my church, 1985, 86, somewhere there, one of my congregants came to me. He was an elderly gentleman. His name was Stan Janeway. Sweet guy. He was 90 years old. Dressed dapper, had a little cap, a sports coat, and periwinkle blue eyes. He was a very spry, energetic guy. He came in one day and said, "Dr. Dennis, I need to talk to you. I need help. Please, can you talk to me?" So I sat him down. I said, "Yes, Stan, what's going on?" And he went on to say, "Well, my beloved wife passed away 5 years ago. And while I'm 90, I still got a lot of good miles left in me." Now, there's an optimist for you, right? And I want another relationship. And I said, "Well, okay." And he said he had no trouble getting dates. Right? He said, "The problem is they'll see me 2 or 3 times, and then they won't see me again. And it's breaking my heart. I don't understand why. Would you please help me with this?" He said, "Will you please come to my house? I'll make dinner for you, and we'll talk about it." And I said, "Okay." So I went to his home. 5 minutes there, sitting down at the dinner table, the story began. He began to tell me every fact about his beloved past wife. I looked around the house. There were pictures of her on every wall. Her clothes still hung in the closet. He wore a wedding band. And I got it immediately. I said, "Stan," I said as compassionately as I could. I said, "What's going on here is very clear. You're telling the universe you have no room in your life for a new relationship." And I pointed out to him the things that I just said. And I said, "And the women who you see, they get it in a heartbeat. You're just not available. So we did some prayer work. He asked me to do some prayer work with him that night. And it worked. About 2 months later, I ran into him walking through the supermarket, and he was arm in arm with his fiancée. A younger woman, 85 years old. It's a true story. And he got it. He got it. As good as that was, he had to let that go so he could make room in his life to continue to be alive and a vital human being in a way that his passions called him to be. So, you know, if we could be mindful enough to stop, take a breath, and say, who would I be without this fill in the blank? Without this memory, without this resentment, without this person, without this fear that projects me into the future? Who would I be if I peel away all those labels? And of course, if we get down to the truth, the divine essence of who we are, we know it's the infinite one waiting for us to wake up and give it shape, form, and expression through us, yeah? In the Tao Te Ching, there's a beautiful saying. When I let go of what I am, I become what I can be. When I let go of what I have, I receive what I need. What do you need to let go of today? Take a breath. The third question we can ask ourselves, and I'm going to move through this rapidly, the question we can ask ourselves on a daily basis to help us understand how to move forward with our lives, and a lot of us go unconscious in this place. Ask this question: do I take time daily to honor and show appreciation for the gift that has been given to me? And am I honoring the giver of the gift by how I am unfolding my life, or am I stuck, slowly dissipating my energy? What is the gift? Life itself. Exactly right. Life itself. You know, life is such a pearl of great price, and yet we take it for granted. Until we have an emergency. We emerge and see that we're taking it for granted. There's a wonderful teaching. I'm a big fan of self-inquiry, which is part of the mindfulness practice that we'll talk about this afternoon. Self-inquiry is a great practice from the East. I believe it comes from the Upanishads, called the miracle of the mystery of the three miracles. And this is about self-inquiry. The first miracle is that anything exists. That's a miracle. When's the last time you just sat down, looked at the stars, and looked at the universe and how things operate, and think, man, this is a miracle. How did this all happen? How amazing is that? The second miracle is that living things exist. Living things that have life force animating them, pushing out through them, growing. Puppy dogs, trees, birds, palm trees, grass. You know, living things exist that have this animated energy that knows how to be more than infinite urges, continually pushing out through it. That's a miracle. How does it do that? Where's that knowledge, that wisdom to do that come from? And of course, the third miracle is the most obvious. Living things exist that know they exist. That would be you and me. To be self-aware is the most profound way to get out of the box and move on with your life. Are you honoring the gift that was given to you? And are you honoring the giver of the gift by living the life you're living? Or is there more for you to do that maybe for whatever the reason is, you have been stuck and not doing it? See, what happens is this. It's profound. When we begin to live fully in that self-inquiry and we really embody this living things exist that know they exist, that would be me. When I look in the mirror, when you look in the mirror, what you see is the divine looking back at you. Full self-realization. And that is the moment when our divinity intersects with our humanity. Here's the humanity on the surface of life. Here's our divinity. Be. And so when we intersect our doing with our being, that's the place to live, in that spot where the two come together as one. And the minute that we do that, we realize that uncertainty disappears. Why? Because it's human-made. The universe knows nothing about uncertainty. It's expanding at the speed of light. Even it knows not where it's going. And that's a mystery. The mystery will never go away. But because you have become part of the mystery, you trust and know that where it's going, you're going, and it's perfect if you're willing to do your part. Yeah? And what the realization we have at that point is, wow, I'm on purpose. My life is on purpose. I love Richard Bach's saying, it's out of Illusions, he says, here's a test to know if your mission on planet Earth is completed. If you're alive, it's not. You have more to do. It may require you coming to the edge. And I close with this. Guillaume Apollinaire, the great French poet, mystic, social pundit, said it so well, and he wrote, "Come to the edge," he said. They said, "No, we're afraid." "Come to the edge," he said. They came. He pushed them. They flew. Come to the edge. There's more for you to do, or you would not be here. Open yourself to what it looks like. Come to the workshop this afternoon. You may get a glimmer of it. I look forward to seeing you then. As always, I'm so honored to be with you. Thank you.